Welcome to the in-between,
where shift happens,
the moment between where we are
and where we are going.
We will ask all the questions,
maybe find some answers,
and generally work at being okay.
In the mystery of the in-between.
And today's episode is Got Hope? Because, the week before the presidential election, I know that everybody is feeling super hopeful right now. I know I am, right? Like, that's the thing that comes to mind when I think about the presidential election. Hope.
Oh, actually, it does. That's what it means.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I'm, being sarcastic. It's not the first thought that comes to my mind. I do have hope. I do have some hope.
Oh, yeah.
But it's certainly not the first thing that comes up for me. And I think that's great that it is for some.
Yeah.
But it is, I think, a topic that comes up in, new thought communities, new age kind of conversations, new age communities, things like that. Certainly communities like ours, I think hope is maybe a loaded word. I think in some places it's like hope is the first step in not believing,
Mm-hmm.
like if you believed it, you wouldn't need hope. And then in other places, hope is like the exact opposite. Like hope is the first step in actually making movement in a certain direction. So I thought, what a good time to talk about it and kind of dig into what does it mean for us. And I think it could be a lot of different things. So we'll just jump right in here. If you are new to the podcast, the premise here is that one of us, we have both agreed on a topic. One of us brings questions and the other one knows not what they are. And we kind of just jump in.
Mystery.
Yes, it is a mystery. Well, we get to kind of be in that in-between space of not knowing. And so that's kind of what it's all about. And that is where the shift happens. At least we think so. So let's jump in. Ryan, what is your take on hope? And where do you land on the hope spectrum?
Hope is an interesting word because I think, historically, I think folks have thought hope as this sort of static desire, like, oh, I hope this happens, or hope that happens, or hope this particular outcome happens. And that there is in that sort of language this illusion of like static, like, okay, I'm gonna stay here and I'm gonna hope something happens to me.
Yeah.
But I think actually hope is a very active word. And some of the, like the science, and I've been reading some research and stuff on hope, knowing that we were talking about it. But a lot of things, it talks about that hope, and I believe this too. Hope is like the first step in any sort of change or any sort of transition, any sort of transformation, because hope really provides this kind of vision into what can be. And so we can't really act on like our goals or act towards any sort of movement if we can't envision that place where we want to be. And so hope becomes really like that activating point of like, I have hope that the world can be this. I have hope that this relationship can be this. I have hope that this interaction can be this, or that I can be this, right? And so it starts like it is like that way of activating that movement in our lives. We have to be able to see it. And I think hope really provides, I don't know, a path.
Yeah.
The path may change, right? But it does this kind of like some sort of light on the path. And I think it is an activating thing. I think it's a great thing for like our own mental health, especially in times of challenge and adversity, right? To have hope that there is something beyond our current experience.
Yeah.
And I think that hope, we know that like everything changes, right? And so then hope is an aspect of that change. And so hope is like this really interesting, intertwined sort of experience in our life. So that's kind of like my general, when I think of hope, that's what I think of. And it's always this, an outcome that is a desired outcome, right? We don't hope for a bad outcome. So there's something about that. There's something about putting our attention to the things that we want to see activated that actually activate them.
Yeah.
Right.
I I like that hope is kind of like the beacon
Yeah.
that, that light off in the distance we're kind of moving towards. That feels really powerful. Like it
Yeah.
does feel, I like the word activating. It feels like it's activating us towards that. It's like there's a movement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which does, yeah, I totally get that. It feels very different than like oh, well, I hope this thing happens in my life. I hope that I get this new job. I hope that whatever. Which either, I'm kind of wondering either there's at least two different kinds of hope, or maybe there's really, these are two very different, uh, we say hope, but actually mean like a wish. Like I wish.
Yeah, like it's like verbiage,
Yeah,
it's like just semantics, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But I like that idea of hope as like the thing that is moving us, the reason, or at
Yeah.
least the spark for the reason, right? That's a very cool thing. Um,
And, like, if you think about, like, a situation that has felt hopeless
mm,
or a situation where you can't see beyond, right? I mean, and so there is that's a very constricting sort of experience, and we've
yeah.
all had it, right? We've all
Hmm.
felt like, this situation seems hopeless, that there's not a way forward or a way out of. And
Yeah.
so this idea of leaning into the pervasive nature of hope really allows us to like understand that like our experiences now, they're not forever, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which I mean, that can be hard for lots of folks, because that's not the
Sure.
reality of the experiences. And so
Yeah.
I can see where those hopeless situations can really it's detrimental from a individual aspect and also a communal aspect too.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I know from past experiences like that hopelessness, I think is almost like the brain's mechanism for like, I just like kind of like bypass, like I can't handle this right now. I'm just gonna like it, it's hopeless. I'm gonna just shut it off, like just turn it off and kind of like turn away from it or whatever. Um, so how do we, or how do you? I don't know that there's one
Mhm.
way. How do you like find hope or build hope or like search for hope? Like how does hope come about? Like where do you think it comes from? Or what is the thing that like creates that spark that is, we're talking about that beacon off in the distance. Like what is the light? What is that spark?
Yeah, that's a hard question. Wow, these are easy questions, Daniel. Thank
Yeah,
you.
sorry.
um I think for me, I can only speak for me because
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think there's different ways that we can activate hope. There's different ways that we can bring this about. And I think that for me, it is just engaging in kind of it's really trying to activate that imaginative, creative aspect of our being,
mm,
and this understanding that if we have this idea that we can create the experiences that we want to see, that where we can influence like collectively and individually by our decisions, by our actions, by our belief systems of belief, that we can actually begin to shape the world around us.
mm,
So I think for me, believing that that is true on some level, that we can collectively, um, through those things, shape the world around us, then for me, activating that power, that ability really is what brings hope. So that, and we know this, we know like one simple action, we can just see it, like even in a one-on-one interaction, like one simple action can really shift like the way I approach an interaction,
mm.
whether it be from a space of love or from a space of defensiveness or whatever, you can literally see it energetically shift that experience. And so then that kind of is hope, right? That's the activation. And so I think for me, the more that I can become aware of that, the way I operate influences everything around me, then
Mm,
that for me activates that kind of hope molecule that we do have an ability to shift and move and change and influence the world around us. And so that's what
yeah.
hope is, right? Is this ability to change from where we are right now to another thing, whatever that is. And sometimes that's hard to
Yeah.
see too,
Yeah.
especially when you're in situations where you're doing stuff and it doesn't seem like who the hell care? I mean, and like there's no like impact. You're not seeing it.
Yeah.
So I think there is too, kind of hope's first cousin is faith, right? So there is that kind of
Mm, yeah.
companion nature of faith. And so your faith is believing in something you cannot see,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And is hope is activating that which yet is yet to be. And so it's like this really interesting uh companionship of ideas, which I think takes
Yeah.
both
Hmm.
really to activate that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. It reminds me of I don't know if you're familiar with the musical Avenue Q. There's a song in it towards the end that's only for now.
Mm,
And it's only for now, and they talk about all these like current events that are happening, and they're like, oh,
right.
whoever, only for now, whatever, it's only for now, and I mean, the musical is very comedic, so it's kind of posed in a very like pokey and funny way, but at the same
Right.
time, it's also really true. Like, yeah, whatever is happening really is only for now.
Yeah. And like I said, sometimes, when we're in those challenges, it's like, oh, is this ever going to change as it drags on day after day?
Yeah,
Right. And so I
yeah.
think, yeah,
Is this the new permanent, the new
the
quote
new
normal?
normal, whatever that looks like.
Yeah,
Right. And it's interesting because every moment that we experience is only for now. Right. And so
yeah,
I mean, that can really like mess your brain up if you think about that too much.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
but
Just
I think that does it gives us hope in the times of challenge, and it activates gratefulness in the times of ease, of
yeah,
gratitude, right? And
yeah,
so
yes.
it's like now gratitude comes in. So now, second cousin of gratitude. So it's like it's
Yeah,
all this intertwined. It's very interesting.
yeah. It is interesting how many things go back to gratitude. I had such a interesting relationship with gratitude for a long time because gratitude was something you're supposed to have, and I
Yeah,
didn't. I
yeah.
definitely didn't. Like, well, now I'm not going to.
Because you said I had to.
Yeah.
Just like you.
Yep. Very
Just
much so.
like me too, right?
um, but I've come around. I've come around. I mean, I still wince a little bit at like the platitude kind of platitude gratitude kind of things, um but no, I mean, I think there really is like that powerful nature of like the the mechanism that we are hardwired with
Hmm.
about gratitude, right? I mean, we I don't know, maybe 2 years ago already, we put out a mini series on gratitude based on the studies done at Berkeley.
Right.
They put out a whole study on gratitude, and so we put together kind of a Reader's Digest version video series on it. But man, did that change my perspective on gratitude a whole lot, because it really is like we are wired chemically, from our DNA, we are wired to have a chemical response to bonding with others, and it
Hmm.
really is a reward system. Gratitude is a reward system. Makes us feel good when we do things, or when we're grateful for things, when people do things for us. um, yeah, and I think for sure, like, the hope that comes along with being grateful for the things that we currently have, knowing that they are only for now.
Yeah.
Grateful for the experiences that, for all the good things we've had,
Yeah.
or the good things we have right now. uh, I don't know that I really looked at hope through that lens before, to be honest. I mean, that's a whole new, feels like a whole new thing right now.
Right.
It's kind of cool. Hmm. What do you think stands in the way of hope, or what has stood in the way for you, I guess,
Um,
in the past?
I think a barrier to the experience of hope. Um, I want to say life in general, but no. But it is right when we, and this is, I mean, and this is not, I'm not attaching any sort of morality to this because I think this is the truth. Is like when we have, how life is this layered experience, layer
Mm,
upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer.
yeah.
And some of those experiences are heavier than others. And for me, when I have not allowed myself to look at some of those experiences or process some of those experiences in a way that's supportive, that layer becomes just thick, 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 hard and crusty, right? And so then
Yeah.
hope is it's hard to see or to have the experience or activate the experience of hope when we can't bust through those things. And so I think for me, it is as often as I can, and like we all, are things that we don't want to look at, but to look at those things and process experiences so that it doesn't become this kind of layered thing that I have to like navigate, or it becomes so heavy that there's just I can't see past anything.
Yeah.
And and that's hard in the moment, right? That takes a lot of time up front, or a lot of time in the moment.
Or a lot of
But
time in general.
yeah, well, just a willingness to be uncomfortable, a willingness to
Yeah.
have uncomfortable conversations, or a willingness to just look at those, how I show up in the world, or how I show up in certain interactions, or what has influenced that, right? So I think for me, it is just constant staying in as as frequent as possible state of reflection and awareness,
Mm,
right? Of how
yeah.
things are landing on me, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's my own stuff or it's absorbed from the world or the people around me. And I think, and allowing myself to dream what's possible, right?
Mm,
And to not be afraid to dream and not to limit dreams, right? Like, oh, uh, I can't do this because I'm X, Y, or Z, or I'm not X, Y, or Z, or I can't do like all the things, or
yeah.
all the yeah buts. Yeah, but I
Yep.
can't.
Yep. Yep.
And so I think it is resisting the yeah buts and daring to dream and what is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. That that idea of the thick and crusty. Yeah.
It's a nice visual, isn't
It
it?
is. I am familiar with the thick and crusty, right? Like all those places where I've like made camp
Yeah.
and like, no, this is really important to become self-righteous about, or
We're gonna die on this hill. We don't
yeah,
care.
yeah, or
Yeah.
you know, whatever recognition, looking
Mhm.
for the recognition that so and so did whatever, and you're going to camp out there until, and I think there is validity in, the healing aspects of recognition for something that's happened,
Mhm.
and also, like you're saying, like as long as it's not building up that thick and crusty boundary of, the the walls around our camp, right? That
Yeah.
it is not a permanent camp, and I think it's really easy, for me, for any of us to turn those walls into like cement and stay there and
Oh
really
yeah.
define ourselves by, this is what it is and this is what it's going to be until, waiting for somebody else to do something, right? Or some other thing to change on its own. um yeah, but for sure that like dreaming, that curiosity, that even just the willingness that you're talking about, I think kind of brings those walls down.
Mhm.
Certainly opens the door.
Yeah. Well, and without hope, there's no movement.
Hmm.
And with no
Hmm.
movement, there's no growth. And with no growth, there is death.
Yeah.
Whether that
Yeah.
is like
Literally.
literal or
Yeah.
emotional, mental, all the things, right? And so I think that, and that also, not only does that apply to us, but that also gives us some responsibility to other folks to create situations
Yeah.
where hope is possible.
Yeah.
And to evaluate our own impact and where we have contributed to things that have contributed to the hopelessness of others. Like
Yeah.
what things have we participated in, whether knowingly or unknowingly? Like how are we contributing? Because we are. Like we
Yeah.
are all contributing to everything that is happening in our world. And like where are those places that I'm contributing to that kind of oppressive nature of hopelessness in other people? And then how can I begin to shift that?
Yeah.
I as an individual and us as collective, because I
Yeah.
think that that is also a responsibility of hope too. Hope is not um, an individual achievement; it is a collective responsibility. I think.
Yeah. And isn't it? I mean,
Well,
it seems like we're finding like everything is.
well, yeah, duh. And
Which,
as if this is some new information, but like this is how
yeah. Yeah.
this is how we were created. This is the
Yeah.
way it's supposed to work.
And it can feel new. I mean, it feels new to me. Like
Right.
in the
Yeah.
context of like zooming in on hope, it's like, oh, that feels new
Yeah.
to me. That
Yeah.
hope is a collective thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. What to wrap us up here? What are some things you are hopeful about right now? Or one thing? What is one thing you are hopeful about right now?
One thing I'm hopeful about. I'm hopeful about the conversations that I'm hearing, not just in, these conversations that, you and I have been having and people in our kind of sphere of influence have been having, but I'm really hopeful that these conversations are, we felt like they were just in our own little bubble. They're not, they're happening
Mhm.
everywhere. And I'm really hopeful of the collective impact of some of these conversations I'm having and I'm hearing. Um, because I think that although what we see sometimes on the surface, you're like, oh man, what is happening? But below the surface, there's lots of powerful conversations, powerful movements,
Yeah.
powerful reckonings, and responsibility takings that are really going to be creating I am hopeful and I'm certain um, are going to shift in ways that we can't even imagine because
Yeah.
things are moving in that direction, although it appears sometimes that they aren't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
that is the thing that I'm hopeful for.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It gives me hope.
And for sure, when an idea that big comes up, the resistance to it, anything that is unlike
Of
that,
course. Of
starts
course.
to seem real loud.
Well,
So
it has to in
yeah.
order to sieve all that
Yeah.
fear out, right? Because
Yeah.
it's fear.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That is. I have a very similar hope right now, or feeling of hopefulness around I think, growing realization of our interconnectedness.
Yeah.
And
For
maybe
sure.
that's the same thing, but just different words. But yeah, I mean, it feels like it's all over the place. Like it's just, and it's things that it may be as simple as like spaces for people to have real conversations,
Yeah.
to places to be able to show up authentically, um, to conversations that people are having that they never had before. I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's a whole lot of things, which is pretty awesome.
Yes.
So not only am I hopeful, actually, I mean, also seeing it. Like I am seeing it. I see
Yeah.
what you're saying,
Yeah.
and hopeful that it is continuing and growing and expanding. So that is a very cool thing. Well, hopefully,
Hopefully.
you have all enjoyed this episode of The In Between, where shift happens, and check out all the other episodes. This is our third season. This is our 7th episode of our third season. So we've got a growing library of episodes to check out if you haven't already. And even if you have, they're always worth going back and listening to. And so we will catch you next time here in The In Between, where shift happens.
Nobody really enjoys being in the in-between.
But thanks for being here anyway.
We may not have found all the answers,
But certainly some. And maybe more importantly,
a little shift has happened.
and the beauty of it all is that we are not alone in the in-between.
So until next time, we hope a lot of shift happens.